Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Yeah, I'm doing a series of these this morning, and I seem to be focused a little bit more on politics. It's not necessarily intentional, it just tends to happen to be that way. My normal sandbox is politics, so yeah, it's not crazy. But I guess specific Democratic Party politics. This is from Twitter. Let's see. James J. Zogby. Now, James J. Zogby is one of the people who were, I guess, one of the Bernie delegates, or one of the people who were in the Bernie wing of the party, or the progressives, or the leftists, whatever they call themselves, that was fired by Tom Perez. Tom Perez got rid of him. Now, Keith Ellison made this statement on Twitter. There are forces outside this room who are working to undermine the success of the Democratic Party. Now, to be fair, I don't know if we made it on Twitter or if we made it just in general when we was talking about one of the meetings, the first few meetings that they had. In the meetings, Tom Perez essentially shivved a bunch of people. It was a red wedding where he got rid of a bunch of people who were supporters of Sanders or who were supporters of Ellis. Ellis, being a normal, not a normal, but being a complete sheepdog, a complete soldier, had no issue with Tom Perez doing this, at least not publicly. The statement is the statement that I want to talk about. I want to talk about this. And I am going to assume the position for the moment, or give Keith Ellison the benefit of the doubt, that when Keith Ellison says there are forces outside of this room that are working to undermine the success of the Democratic Party, that he's being earnest in that statement. That this is not just typical politics where people say stuff and they say stuff because they're pushing a particular position. I am going to give Keith Ellison the benefit of the doubt that he means this. There are forces outside of this room that are working to undermine the success of the Democratic Party. All right, Keith. I would propose to you that yes, there are forces outside trying to undermine the party. That's the other parties. Your problem is not what's outside the room that's trying to undermine the party. Your problem is the party itself. Your problem is the party itself. Keith, your party hasn't had success. You've lost the House, the presidency, the Supreme Court, the Senate, and 66 of 99 state legislatures. That is not success. That is the opposite of success. That is failure. That is failure on a massive fucking level. That is failure at a level where physicists have not found a word to calculate it yet. That's how bad you guys have failed. It is an embarrassing level of failure. It is a breathtaking level of failure. Success should not even be in the sentence. You guys have failed. Now, the reason why I'm trying to bring this home and I'm trying to nail this down, that there is failure on a massive fucking level, is because I need you to understand that the issues that are affecting your party is internal to your party. It's not external. Every party throughout the world, in every country, has other parties that are antagonistic towards the party. That is the natural flow of politics that we have currently. It's not about what's outside the room. It's about what's internal to you. What is the problem with your party? Why do you fail so much? Why do you fail so much? You believe that there's something that's causing you to fail that much. What I propose to you is there is something that causes you to fail that much, but those are purely internal dynamics of the Democratic Party. Now, you have people outside the party. People who you're putting in a corner. People who Tom Perez are firing. The guy who ran against the establishment candidate. You have people outside that party who are, yes, you can call them antagonistic towards the party. But they're antagonistic with a very specific aim. You don't represent what your party is supposed to represent. And because you don't represent that interest, the interests, your older brother, your specter, your shadow, who you were, those FDRs, those guys, the definitive left, the actual left, yes, they're going to be antagonistic towards your aims. You have a Democratic Party that's made the decision under Bill Clinton to take gobs and gobs of cash. And when Bill Clinton got in that office, he did policies that if a Republican tried to do, they would have been completely lambasted and attacked. So yes, he was going to deregulate Wall Street. Yes, he was going to pass the crime bill. Yes, he was going to pass NAFTA. He was doing right-wing policies, but because they were coming from a Democrat, he got somewhat of a pass. Well, if Bill Clinton is doing it, I mean, he was a Democrat. It has to be okay. It has to be okay. It's the reason why Richard Nixon can go and meet with China. Like, it's this thing where when something is done across party, it gives a certain amount of credibility just because it's the other party that's doing it. It doesn't fit into the narrative of what that party is. But I'm just making the point that he did those things. He did raise more money than the Republican candidate, and he did turn around and do right-wing things. Things that would have shocked the conscience of any other Democrat coming before Bill Clinton. The point I'm getting at is, your problem, Keith, is the dynamics of the party itself. Your party has made the decision that it could take gobs and gobs and gobs of cash, and it could lean to the right, because honestly, they're not going to give you those gobs and gobs of cash if you do things that are against their interests. Nobody in their right mind is going to give you huge amounts of money, meaning $1 billion to run an election, with the idea that you're going to turn around and be antagonistic towards the things that they want their particular interests. When they call, you're going to pick up the phone because they gave you a huge amount of cash and you need a huge amount of cash to get elected. Now, people understand this. People are not shocked by this. They understand that for the most part, it's open bribery. And they understand that what the Democratic Party is supposed to represent and the things that the Democratic Party says in no way is representative in the legislation that they push and the things that they do in that office. That's your problem. That's your fundamental problem. The perception is, and the perception is right, that you lean towards cash. Now, the problem with that is, if you're a Republican, no issue. Republicans are obsequious to cash. They've always been that way. But that's not your philosophical basis. Your philosophical basis is supposed to represent the 99%. Workers, poor, the people who don't necessarily have means. You're supposed to be antagonistic towards those exact same interests that you guys have cozied up to. You're being pulled in two directions. You have a history that pulls you in one way, which is, for the most part, your rhetoric, because talk is cheap, and so you can talk in that particular way. With this idea of belief that cash is necessary for you to get elected. We have to raise money. We don't have a choice but to take the money. We have to take the money. We don't have a choice. We can get some incremental stuff done. We can do stuff around the edges, providing they allow us to do it and give us the cash, you know, at the same time. But that's the best that we can hope for. You got to pick a pony. That conflict, that deal that you guys made, that this third-way Democrat stuff, you guys need to pick a pony. Are you going to represent the interests of the 99%, or are you going to represent the interests of the people who are giving you tons of cash? You can't do both. And that conflict is at the heart of why you guys continuously lose the way that you do. You had somebody who calls himself a socialist running far to the left of who you guys were. And for the first time, you had independents jazzed. Half the country don't vote. But guess what? That half, or a lot of that half, was going to vote for that guy who called himself a socialist. The key point is, if you did an analysis of what went wrong, meaning with the party itself, and why people don't vote for you, what I think you would find is that the country didn't necessarily move anywhere. You did. You moved far to the right. And you had a lot of people who used to be Democrats could no longer stomach what you became. And those people just didn't vote. They didn't see what their vote had to do with the political process. So you need to pick a pony. You can't be continuously pulled in these two directions. You've continuously made the assumption that we don't have to do squat for labor, we don't have to do squat for blacks, we don't have to do squat for anybody. Republicans are rabid and batshit crazy. We can continuously be least worst and make the rational argument of, hey, 3 is less than 4, right? We're least worst. We're least worst. We're incrementally better. From a rational standpoint, you should vote for us because we're incrementally better. which completely misses the point that over the long term, that continuously voting for the least worst continually pushes the party further and further to the right, because they further believe that we can continuously be least worst. Republicans get more batshit crazy. The more batshit crazy, the more rational argument we can make of we're least worst. Vote for us. You're crazy if you vote for them. They're batshit crazy. Vote for us. We're least worst. Until their party fails completely and utterly, you're not going to get a situation that anything positive is going to take place in regards to how they are supposed to be wired. The point I'm trying to make is, Keith, your problem is the party itself. Your problem is that you've thrown labor overboard, you've thrown the poor overboard, you've thrown overboard all these demographics and cling to identity like grim death, believing full well that identity, because multiculturalism, you have more people, more Hispanics, more blacks, etc., that would essentially create this kind of governing demographic where you don't necessarily have to deal with the economic concerns, which was the primary concerns of the Democratic Party at one point. You can focus on identity. Identity is easy. It doesn't challenge your corporate overlords. It doesn't challenge the plutocrats. It's easy. It's soothing to many demographics to say, oh, these guys are at the very least saying nice things about me. It's not enough. It's not enough. That logic doesn't fly. You guys continuously lose. So I'm taking Keith at his word when he says there are forces outside the room who are working to undermine the Democratic Party or the success of the Democratic Party, that he actually means that. I take him at his word that he is just completely misguided. That the forces that he absolutely needs to be concerned about are the forces in that room and the dynamic that is taking place in the Democratic Party and the shameful degree of obfuscation of any honest interrogation of the problems of the party. You guys scream Russia. You didn't even look at yourselves to figure out what are we doing wrong. And the last thing you wanted is to have that conversation. In fact, just for a slight detour on this, you guys have been lying miserably. You understood there was no unity in the party. You had 50 million people leave your party after that election. And yet, you continuously pretended as if the cheating didn't exist. And you continuously pretended as if it was just an awesome primary and there was nothing to see here. We're completely united and everything is great and there's roses and rainbows and unicorns. And it was insanity. It was lying. To some degree, you're still doing it. Everybody full well understood that there was a complete rift and division after you cheated Bernie Sanders. And the question continuously came up because news media looked at you guys and said, you guys are lying through your teeth. Certainly, there is a rift and there's an issue here. Until you challenge that directly, until you own up to the fact that you were right, we shouldn't have cheated Bernie Sanders. Until you do all that stuff, then for the most part, you guys look like liars. You look like liars. You have several issues that assail your party. This is all I'm getting at. This is my basic main point. There's several things and there's several issues that assail your party. You're not dealing with any of them. You're plodding along and not dealing with any of them. Until you do, you're going to have those issues. And ultimately pretending as if they're quote-unquote forces outside the room. It's never about what's outside. Most of the time it's not. It is about what's inside that topples a particular kingdom. Yeah. Garneau, focusing on forces in the room is equally pointless. The unity corn was a sham and it was the outcome decided beforehand. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. I agree. The unity committee was a sham. Yeah, of course it was a sham. They wanted to shut those people up and try to get those people back into the party. They wanted to con those people into the party. They wanted to con them into the party. The only action, the only real, honest action if you're trying to get anything done is to leave. It's to leave. It's to take your ball and go home. If you guys want to play basketball and you want to play in this particular way under this particular rule set, fine. Play by yourself and leave. If they're going to win, they're going to win without you. Don't be complicit in the shit that they do. If you full well believe that there was some level of chance or hope in this idea of a unity commission, I hope you realize that hope has just been dashed. Sold a bill of goods. Sold a bill of goods. Zok Ox Avox. But when they do, we'll have a revolution or be exterminated. Wow, that's bleak. That's dark. Sammy McPhone. She says all the right things, but that makes me nervous. I don't know who he's talking about. Garno. Sammy, I wouldn't go for that, but it could turn out that way. I predict we will see the government crack heads of third parties and their candidates, just like Catalonia. I don't think they'll crack heads. I think what you would find will be something like they did to Jill Stein, where they would try to keep her off the stage and does other stuff, and they would try to use the police in order to say, well, this person is trespassing. That type of stuff. You got to get third parties into the mix. You have to get third parties to be able to be on stage in these debates. I don't know how you do that. My feeling is there a creative way to challenge just legally? And I don't know. I don't know about law on this. Nina Turner is Obama 2.0. What do you think? I don't think Nina Turner is Obama 2.0. Yeah, I don't think Nina Turner is Obama 2.0. I think she's a true believer. Look, you have some people who, for whatever reason, feel tethered to the Democratic Party. Now, despite her tether, she's been somewhat antagonistic towards the Democratic Party. Yeah, just because she's not necessarily a, foaming at the mouth radical doesn't necessarily mean she's Obama 2.0. They would not give her power. No, they don't give her power. Power is taken. It's usurped. They've lost everything. Their legitimacy as a party has essentially almost evaporated. Now, I would argue, scorched earth. You vote for the people who represent your interests. If they're going to put up somebody who's a hack, then that person doesn't get your vote. Let that person fail. Now, the problem with this is Republicans are batshit crazy. That's the catch. That's the heft. That's the honest thing that you would have to hit your head on if you're going this approach, because it's who gives first. Do Democrats finally take the hint and say, okay, we relent? Or do they let the place burn? The question becomes, are you willing to let the place burn in order to get something better? I am. Nina's not a true believer. Did you see her speak at COM? She was pushing the line hardcore, misrepresenting the level of transparency, etc. She's not Obama, though. Yeah, I don't think she's Obama. I don't think she's Obama. I mean, she may not necessarily, again, be a foaming at the mouth lefty, but I don't think she's Obama. I have my pitchfork at the ready. Laura Mountain Girl. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We have our revolutionaries. I made that case. And I wanted to make that case in this way of being this kind of full-throated revolutionary where I didn't necessarily have to think of the practical concerns. Because look, personally, I like to exist in different headspaces. Like I like this thing of putting yourself in another position thoroughly and fully where you can get the emotions that are associated with that position. It is an interesting and an odd way to go about looking at the world and other people and the reason why people do the things that they do. Sometimes it feels gross. Sometimes it feels amazing. Just depends. Pot helps with that, by the way. I don't trust anyone running in the Democratic Party anymore at all if they're corrupted or naive. Yeah, and that's my issue too. We're having elections here in Virginia, and it's like, this guy's white bread Democrat. He's not, he's not representing my interests. I don't trust anything coming from the party. So there's a massive headwind for me to vote for anybody who's coming from the party. So most likely I will vote Green Party. Yeah, man, I agree with you. Their cheating of Sanders was the worst thing they could have done. Honestly, there was a certain arrogance associated with it. But they don't realize that same smear, that same scar that was on Republicans with regards to blacks could have also been applied to them. You're talking about a generation of people who full well understood that the Republican Party was not a party they could vote for. And you have a scar that you've placed on the Democratic Party now with regards to anybody who is voting for Sanders. You've given yourself a massive headwind. It's a horrible idea. Horrible idea. Gnome, Zox, in the end, it doesn't matter if they're corrupt or just dumb. The outcome is the same. It doesn't matter if they're corrupt or just dumb. The outcome is the same. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I know Gnome and I usually disagree on this thing of headspace. Like, I care about what goes on in people's heads. I think what goes on in people's heads is infinitely important in regards to how things turn out. Even if things turn out a particular way, I want to know what was in their heads when they did it. They could have just been wrong. They could have been off. They could have been in some kind of mental loop of sorts that allowed them to get into some strange place. I want to know. I find those things immensely fascinating. Yes, practical brass tacks reality is something. So whether it was stupid or whether it was intentional, fair enough. The reality of it is the same. But what's in their head matters. I think it matters. I think Sanders was buyable and she would have won with him as VP, but she went right to cash. I think I'm more cynical than that. Sammy McFawn. Nah, I'm more cynical than that. I think Hillary Clinton assumed that Donald Trump was a goddamn buffoon. And I think from her context, she looked at it as everybody has to understand that this man is a buffoon. The public has to understand he's a buffoon. Look at him. He's a reality show host. He has no chance whatsoever of winning the presidency. So, as Hillary Clinton, I don't have to cater to the left. Fuck them. They're going to vote for me because this guy's a buffoon. I don't have to cater to anybody. I don't have to give anything away. This guy is a goddamn buffoon. He's the goddamn apocalypse. And I'm going to make sure that each and every person is scared out of their mind if they just so happen to put him in that office. I want every vote to have a tax on it. Meaning every time you vote for him, I want at the very least this idea of this guy being a racist or sexist or hazardous, meaning to the planet itself. I want everybody to understand that he's the goddamn apocalypse. He's going to kick your kids. He's going to eat your babies. He's going to kick your puppies. He is a horrible person. And that was her campaign. Now, I think in her mind, though, there's no way he can win. He's a goddamn buffoon. There's no way he can win. The public's not going to put this buffoon in office. And so she just took it as, I don't have to give anything away. Or at the very least, I don't have to give much away. I can give a faint thing away. I am not going to ask Bernie Sanders to be the vice president. Fuck Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders shouldn't have even been running in the race. I'm not going to let Nita Turner speak at the DNC conference. I am going to essentially block out, these or cheat in the way that we cheated for Nevada or knocking all these people off the rolls in New York. I'm going to be brazen about it. Yes, I am going to choose Tim Kaine. Fuck Bernie Sanders. Fuck Elizabeth Warren. Fuck Tulsi Gabbard. I don't have to give this country anything. I'm goddamn Hillary Clinton. Goddamn Hillary Clinton. I have a diamond vagina. And I'm going to be put in an office because it is my turn. And I think she assumed that the public was going to go along with it because Donald Trump was unelectable. She assumed wrong. She assumed wrong. She assumed way too much. If you were looking at the polling, it didn't matter what took place. It didn't matter what gaffe Donald Trump had that particular week. It didn't matter what thing stupid he said, what word he flubbed, who he pissed off, who he offended. If he had a video grabbing by the pussy, none of that stuff mattered. Hillary Clinton could not pull away from him at any particular point. And at the last minute, they understood that they started to lose certain states in the North. She took it all for granted. And she lost the reality shows. I'm more cynical than that. I honestly think that she just took it for granted. She just assumed there's no way the public is going to put this maniac in office. And if I run my campaign, and her campaign went towards that. That was her campaign. This guy is a maniac. There's no way you can put this maniac in that office. When you look at, they did a study of her ads. And the overwhelming majority of those ads was Donald Trump is going to kick your kids, and he's going to eat your puppies, and he is a maniac. He's going to start a nuclear war. Like, that was her campaign. He's insane. He's fucking insane. I'm sick to the death of Bill Maher's "Don't you wish you voted for Hillary" bullshit. Trump and Clinton were both unacceptable. I agree. She needed an attack dog. No, it's not that she needed an attack dog. She needed to understand that there is a large majority of the country that don't see the Democratic Party as being in their interests. And you have this insurgent campaign of Bernie Sanders coming out of the goddamn wilderness, and it's toppling, or almost toppled, the person who was considered to be inevitable. Man's calling himself a socialist in America, and he's going after her ass, and he's catching fire. And again, if it wasn't for them cheating, Sanders would have won that election. At least I think he would have won if it wasn't for the cheating. Well, two things. If Sanders thought he had a chance early on, when he first started the campaign, if Sanders had in his head, I am going to try to win this thing, I think he would have a different campaign. And yes, he would have beat Donald Trump. She would have had to give. She would have had to give. Like, if you want to have an awesome presidency for dummies, if you want to have an awesome presidency, make sure the public knows that you're representing their interests, and go after the things that the public dislikes. The public dislikes Wall Street. They dislike the way corporate America takes advantage and exploits them. Go after those things. Be aggressive, be antagonistic, be their avatar. Be the avatar of their will. Be the president. Be an FDR type, be an LBJ type. Not LBJ in foreign policy, but an LBJ in regards to domestic policy. You could rock that presidency. Donald Trump could have owned that office. Donald Trump could have came out and said, I'm for healthcare for all, just like I said I was. I want to raise the minimum wage. Yes, I'm going to give myself tax cuts, and I'm going to give these other people tax cuts. But part of this is going to be for the American public itself. You can own that office. That's not what they do when they get in that office. And that's the problem. Just for a point, and I'll leave it at this. I don't want the video to get too long. Obama had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. George Bush, the public, he had what, like a 30% approval rating. Hated him. Absolutely hated him. And the public was screaming at the top of their lungs for change, for something different. Obama caught this win and says, I am the change that you all can believe in. I am goddamn hope and change. You know I'm change because A, I am black, which was definitely different than anything else. I have a Muslim name. And yes, I am hope and change. And he runs that election, that campaign, as if he's the most progressive thing that you would ever see in your life. And that when he gets into that office, he is going to be fundamentally different than anything else that came before him. At the very least, up to the point of FDR. The public was with him on this. The public was screaming, yes, something different. You had people that would come to the door, honest to God, when they would do like polling and everything else. And it would be people who would be outright racist. Fucking give the nigger a try. I'll vote for him. Literally, with teleposters. And he gets in that office. And he governs like George Bush. Now, he does some different things, don't get me wrong. But ultimately, the drone programs, the wars, all this other stuff, for the most part, it was just basic centrist Republican policy. Markets first, markets are the best. I'm not going to protect the homeowners. I'm going to protect the banks, etc., etc., etc. The public was primed for change. That's what I'm getting at. Your public wanted something fundamentally different. Obama could have did whatever he wanted. He could have went in there and punished Wall Street. He could have punished the banks. Obamacare could have been, yes, Medicare for all, because that's essentially what he ran on, and the public was primed for change. They expected change. Their expectations were not fulfilled. If you want to know what's wrong with the Democratic Party, it's the optics. You have somebody who's, just because he's African American, is not necessarily indicative of change in that office. Identity is not everything. What you do, who you represent, that one matters. Identity is not everything. That's what I'm getting at. All right. I don't want to push this on for too long. The Obama thing annoys me. Because it feels like you had a chance. You had your chance. And when you're looking at, tell me what you believe in. I've asked this question all the time. Tell me what you believe in. And you pass Obamacare that leaves 20 million people uninsured. And you look at this, and you're not bashing Congress. You're not in the well beating the shit out of one member after the next, naming names in a bully pulpit. I'm Obama. I'm saying I'm going to get healthcare passed. And these are the people who are standing in my way. And I'm going to bash them every night on the evening news. I'm going to bash them every time I get in front of a camera. Every time somebody sticks a mic in my face, I'm going to be bashing them because they're not doing what they said they were supposed to be doing. That's not what took place. All of that time with healthcare. And we're still talking about healthcare. They took him to court because of the complexity of the healthcare. You know what wasn't something that was allowed? Medicare for all. That would have been allowed. Couldn't take him to court at all over it. There's no legal hedge or anything on that. But that wasn't politically feasible. Markets mattered more to Obama. So you got the healthcare that you got. Yeah, I leave it at that. That annoys me. That's all. That's all. Obama destroyed the Democratic Party. His final act was to install Tom Perez. Yep. Reaching from the grave is like reaching. It's like, I have one more fuck up to take place before I leave office. Tom Perez. Tom Perez. Alright, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys.